Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's session on estate and gift planning, specifically in the health sciences at The Ohio State University. I am Carla Zadnik. I'm the Dean of the College of Optometry and Interim Dean of the College of Public Health, as well as serving as the lead dean for the health science colleges. And I have the great pleasure to introduce our main presenters this evening. John Woods is the Assistant Vice President for Estate and Gift Planning here at Ohio State, and he's been in that role since 2015. Prior to that, he was Vice President of Gift Planning for the University of Arizona Foundation for 2 decades. And before that, he worked for the law firm of Dickerman and Knuckles in Tucson, Arizona. He earned a bachelor's degree in speech communication from the University of Arizona and a law degree from Creighton University. And I know you'll be interested in John's questions and answers with our next guest, Marianne Kennedy. Marianne retired in 2013 as the director of the Cardiovascular Metabolism Medical Science Liaison Team in Medical Affairs for Genentech. She is a pharmacy alum, earning her Bachelor's of Science in Pharmacy from the Ohio State University in 1978. Shortly after that, in 1982, she was elected president of the Greater Cleveland Academy of Pharmacy, which is now the Northern Ohio Academy of Pharmacy. And at that time, she was the first woman and the youngest president in the organization's 102-year history. Currently, Marianne serves as director on the Ohio State University Foundation Board, is a member of the College of Pharmacy Alumni Governing Board, and has a previous recipient of a Distinguished Alumni Award. She and her husband of 40 years, Larry Kennedy, have fully endowed scholarships at our College of Pharmacy, at Larry's College, Trine University, and at Larry's High School, Gilmore Academy. They have also endowed a master clinician in breast cancer prevention and early intervention at University Hospitals Cleveland Medical Center to honor Marianne's surgical oncologist. So her record with Larry of philanthropy is long and distinguished. And I have to stop introducing her or we won't have a moment for the rest of our program because I could go on and on. John and Marianne, they're all yours.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Carla, for that kind introduction. First of all, welcome to my fellow healthcare colleagues. I'm very pleased that you're able to join us tonight. And I am very thrilled to be here with John Woods to discuss basically current information and resources for your gifting and estate planning needs. Now, you'll notice at the beginning, we mentioned that you can put your questions in the Q&A box that we're running on screen here, so feel free. We'll try to address questions as we go along. However, if we don't get to them during the discussion, we'll have time afterwards to catch up on those questions. John, I think to start this conversation, it would be helpful for you to tell us a little bit about your office, what you do, and who's on staff.
All right. Well, we're in the Office of Estate and Gift Planning, and we have a team of gift planners of 7 that are actual people who have law degrees. So my entire team have law degrees. And then what we actually do is we work with alumni and friends who have an interest in doing something with their, either through their estate or possibly a charitable trust or charitable gift annuity, which pays them income for life when they make a charitable gift. We also work, oversee the gift agreement and endowment services area, which writes all gift agreements for the university. So if you do a scholarship, a research fund, a professorship, we also draft all of those agreements. And we work with our alumni and friends on trying to find the most tax advantageous way to make a gift. So it doesn't necessarily have to be through their estate or their will or trust. Could be an outright gift, but we're going to help them make the most tax advantageous gifts to the university as they can.
Well, thank you, John. A common question that routinely comes up is about putting assets into a trust and the best way to do this. Is this a question that someone should take to their personal attorney, or does your office get involved?
Yeah, we can help to a certain extent. We do not offer legal or tax advice. They have their own counsel to do that. So we do recommend that they talk to their own attorney about the best benefits for them, because it's going to depend on what their assets are, how their estate's going to be structured. So, we're happy to help at a certain point, but they really should be working with their own attorney on that.
All right, thanks. When alumni and friends of the university are thinking about making a gift to the Ohio State University, what type of gifting structures are available to them?
So there's many different ways you can make a gift. So you can do a cash gift or an outright gift to the university, which could be for current use. And what that means is you make the gift, the unit that you're giving the money to can use it right away and use all of it at any point. If you want something that's a little more into the future and something that's permanent, an endowment is the way you would go. And an endowment is set up that you put money into an endowment and it pays out a certain amount every year in perpetuity. So that's kind of the lifeblood of the university is through endowments. And then also with either a current use or an endowment, you don't have to make the entire gift all in the first year. You can actually make a pledge, and you can do a pledge for up to 5 years for whatever your interest is. And then kind of get into my arena, which is the charitable estate planning. The easiest way to make a gift through your estate is through your will or trust. So through your will or trust, you can actually leave money to the university and designate it for how you want it to be spent. And then there's vehicles that will actually, you can make a gift, get income for life, and get a partial charitable deduction. And that's through a charitable trust or gift annuity. So there's different vehicles to use and different structures depending on what you're trying to accomplish.
John, you mentioned the endowments, and I know that tends to be popular.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And also, can the university or charity that has that endowment, can they change it in the future at any time?
Yeah. So with endowments, our current minimum is at $100,000. As I said, that can be done currently in one time or over a 5-year period. With the endowment, it does pay out a certain percentage. So the way it works at Ohio State, it pays out 4.5% of a 5-year rolling average. So when you look at that, an endowment currently is going to pay out about 4%. So if you put $100,000 into an endowment, you're going to have $4,000 that's going to go for the purpose that you want. That's just for scholarships, research, faculty support. However you want it spent, it's going to go that way. Each year it's revalued, so as it increases, because it's invested it's invested into a growth portfolio in our endowment. As it grows, it starts distributing out more, and that's in perpetuity. So that's going to be around as long as the university's around. With the endowment, some people think that you can't dip into principal, and that's not necessarily true. Because we pay out that 4.5% of the 5-year average. If the market's down in the first year or the second year, you may have to dip into the principal in order to pay that. But as time goes on, it grows and it does get above again. Your second question is, can we as a university or a charity change it? The answer is, it depends. It is, I should be saying no, we can't. If we can use the funds the way you tell us to do it. So say you have it for scholarships for students who are from Greene County. We're not going to be able to change that as long as we can award that scholarships. Let's say you have a scholarship for students who are from Palo Verde High School in Tucson, Arizona. We had one student who came from there, and for the next 5 years, we had no students. So we may have to modify things as time goes on, or say Palo Verde is no longer a high school, so we can't accomplish that. We actually have to go to the Attorney General if certain things happen. If you're living, we go back to you and say that we can't accomplish what you want anymore, let's change it. But if you're no longer living, there's a procedure that the legislature tells us, either to the Attorney General or to the probate court, and we're going to get as closely as possible to what your original intent was. But we just cannot change it at whim.
Well, that's good to know, John, and I think that gives people ease of mind that their intentions are honored.
Yes.
I'm curious, what are the most common types of gifts made through your department?
So the most common types of gifts we do working with the charitable estate planning is that will or living trust. So somebody puts this in their estate plan, and then when they're no longer living, the money comes to us. And we see that that's probably about 90% of the gifts that we receive in our office is from a will or a living trust.
Okay. John, if you name Ohio State in your will or trust, should you notify the university? I assume the answer is yes, but why is that so important and why should somebody reach out?
So it is very important because we want to make sure we're able to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. So if you try to, if you put language in your will and we can't do what you're asking us to do, we're going to have to go to court to get that changed because we can't do that. So it's important for us to know what it is so we can actually give you the correct language to go back to your attorney to make sure it's right. We'll see a lot of gifts that come in, probably about 50% of the estate gifts we receive after somebody dies, we had no idea we were getting the gift. And there's a lot of times we cannot do certain things that they're asking us to do. So that's very important. But it's also important because your gift, if you do it through your will or living trust, it's a revocable gift. You can change your mind at any point, even if you let us know. It's not binding until it actually comes in. But it gives us a heads up the money's coming here. So if something does happen down the road and there's some type of fraud, which believe it or not, every once in a while we do see some type of incidents that there is some fraud going on. We're able to go back to say, we were told we were in the estate plan, so we're going to check up to see what happened. Sometimes they took us out of the estate, but it gives you kind of another pair of eyes to make sure what you want is being done correctly.
So it sounds like it's helpful not only to the university, but helpful to the donor to include you or notify you if you put Ohio State in your will or trust.
Absolutely. And also we want to say thank you during your lifetime. It really is nice that you're making this type of gift, but for us to be able to say thank you and have you involved and come to different things like our Neil Legacy Society. We have 2 events a year, one with the president of the university and one kind of an insider tour on campus. And it's for those people who have notified us that we're in their estate plan.
Right. That's really good to know that there's also benefits to the donor during their lifetime.
Yes.
Talking about intentions of a donor, if someone wants to support a specific department, unit, professor on campus, if there is something they want to do, can they do that is it possible to do that through their estate planning?
Yeah, absolutely. Almost all the gifts we receive are designated somewhere on campus. Very rarely we actually get something that's unrestricted to the university. So you can designate your gift through your estate as specific as you want. It can be for scholarships, research, faculty support, whatever you desire, we can do. So what we ask you to do is actually to do a gift agreement. And the gift agreement states that it's non-binding, it's revocable until it's actually funded, but it tells us what your interests are and what you want to accomplish. So by doing that, you can make changes to it at any point, but at least has everything spelled out exactly the way you want it. So when the money comes in and you're no longer living, we're able to follow exactly what you wanted us to do.
Okay, that's really great to know. John, I know another question that comes up pretty routinely is you may be interested in setting up a scholarship. Can you kind of walk us through how you accomplish that?
Yeah. So what you do is if you have an interest in doing a scholarship, we're able to work with you to find the criteria that you want. We don't want to be too specific that in 20 years it's not going to be awardable, because the goal is to award the scholarships every single year. So we want to have some language in there that allows you to accomplish what you want if that student's available. If that student isn't available, kind of have another set underneath it so we can make sure we're giving students award every year. But we're working with you to make sure we're finding what your interests are and what your criteria that you want to do.
And again, that's done through your office in terms of setting this up and completing the paperwork.
Yes. Yeah. So if it's an outright gift, each unit has their own development officer, and they'll work with the donor to do to actually come up with the criteria. My office will draft the gift agreement for review by the donor.
Okay, great. Probably under a different vein or a different kind of question, John, is I recently read in the Wall Street Journal, and I couldn't believe this, that an estimated 54% of Americans don't have a documented will. That was quite surprising. Can you talk a bit about the importance of planning for the future with the will?
Yeah, it's important to have a will. There's a couple of different reasons. First, you want to be able to designate who gets your money when you're no longer living. And we all don't want to think of that, when you think about making your will, you think that it's all about death, but it isn't. It's really about planning. So you want to make sure nobody knows what's going to happen with them tomorrow. So having a will, as soon as you can is really a good idea. One important reason to have a will, though, especially if you have children, is if something happens to you, who the guardians are going to be. So you're making the decision who the guardian, not the court. So if you don't have a will, there's other ways to actually pass assets to who you want to pass them through, and that's payable on death or transfer on death. So a lot of accounts will have a beneficiary that you do, so it doesn't necessarily have to have a will. But if you do not have a will, you do not have payable on death on your accounts, then the court or the statutes in the state that you live in dictates how your money is going to get distributed. Most likely it's going to go to a relative, but if you don't have relatives, it could at one point go back to the state. Very, very rare, but it's a possibility.
John, on another note, looking again at what's going on in our current climate, another area that's been really emphasized in the press is we hear a lot about Congress, and it takes forever to get things done. But there have been recently, in the last couple of years, a couple of pieces of legislation that really can impact certain things like our IRA. So I was wondering, can you tell us a little bit about the Secure Act and what that can mean for us?
Yeah, so the Secure Act was passed right before COVID, so a lot of people didn't realize that was passed. It raised the age from 70.5 to 72 when you had to start taking your minimum distributions from your IRA. The Secure Act 2.0 increased it even a little bit further. So now you're at 73, and it could increase a little bit further than that. So that gives you the opportunity to take your IRA distributions if you don't need them at a later date so they can continue to grow.
John, a term that's come up is the stretch IRA, that's possibly a tool. I don't know where that factors into this.
Yeah, so what happened with the Secure Act is it used to be if you gave your IRA to somebody, your spouse or your child, you can stretch it out of their life expectancy. So they did not have to take it all out all at once over a term of years, but it could be over their life expectancy. So if somebody was in their 50s when they inherited the IRA, they had many years to take it out, so the tax consequences was not as severe. The Secure Act, the first Secure Act, actually took that away. So if you're a spouse, you could still do that and do a stretch IRA over your lifetime. But if you're not a spouse, you have to take it out over a 10-year period. And what that does is you're paying taxes most likely at a higher rate because you're taking it out most likely equally over a 10-year period. And it's going to give you more income and you're in a higher tax bracket. One way that the IRS still allows to you do a stretch IRA is through a charitable remainder trust. So a parent can set up a charitable remainder trust during their lifetime, and they can be empty or they can do start it during their lifetime. And the beneficiary of the IRA would be the charitable remainder trust. That thing gets poured into the IRA gets poured into the charitable remainder trust at the death of the IRA holder. And then it follows the term of the trust, which could be for the lifetime of your children. So it's a way to stretch the IRA that the government took away from us normally. So it's a good way to do it. A little bit more complex, but I think a lot more attorneys are talking to their client about this option.
Well, that's really good to know, John, for the future. And I think with a lot of these changes, you have to become familiar with how you can adapt to them.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
it anyway, John. How about making a gift from your IRA? How can that be accomplished?
So a few years ago, the IRA, was probably about 15 years ago, the Congress gave us a tool that let you give money directly from your IRA. And they gave us for so many years, and then it would stop, and then they would renew it, and it would stop. They finally made it permanent, probably about a decade ago. So you can give up to $100,000 directly to a charity once you're 70 and a half. So some of the benefits are, after you have to take your required minimum distributions, that counts towards it. So if you don't really need those funds in any given year, great to give them to charity. You're not taxed on them. So a great way to do it. If you're in a state like Ohio, where we do not itemize our charitable deductions, this is a way to get that extra benefit because you're not paying taxes and then giving it to a charity. You're just giving to the charity without paying taxes. So it's a good tool. Once you're 70 and a half, you have an IRA, and you give to charity, that's how you really should be doing it, is through your IRA with this provision.
Well, that's great to qualify that. And that 70 and a half, John, even with all the changes, that you can still do the QCD with, correct?
Yeah, you can still do it at 70 and a half, even though it's an older age now, when you have to start taking your RMD.
Got it. I can see why we need your office and your expertise. This is a moving target. John, does the qualified charitable distribution, the QCD, have to come from the IRA?
It needs to be either a simple IRA, which is the simplified employee pension plan, or an active simple plan. So it can't be a 401k, it can't be a 403b. Those have to be rolled over to an IRA first, but a simple, an inactive simple IRA does work also.
All right. Thanks for that clarification. We learned that the Secure Act 2.0 was passed at the end of last year.
Yes.
And were there any charitable provisions in there that we should be aware of?
Yeah, so there was one that came out that we've actually utilized more than I thought we would, but it is, you can actually use $50,000 from your IRA once you're 70 and a half to do a charitable remainder trust or a charitable gift annuity. So you can put money into it, you get income back for the rest of your life from there, and then when you're no longer living, it goes to the charity. It can be for you or your spouse or both of you. Can't be more than the spouse and the two people there. And it can only be $50,000, and it's per person one time. We're not exactly sure why Congress did it this way, but you can do the charitable gift annuity one time up to $50,000, and it could be for spouses.
You mentioned two vehicles there, John. You mentioned the charitable gift annuity.
Yeah.
And I believe you mentioned the charitable remainder trust. Can
Yeah.
you help us differentiate those two?
Yeah, so a charitable gift annuity is like a commercial annuity. So you give money to the charity, they pay you a fixed amount for the rest of your life. So, for example, if you are 75 years old, your rate would be 6.6%. That's fixed, never changes, no matter what interest rates are. You get the 6.6. If you have two 70-year-olds, it's 5.2%. So a little bit lower because you have two lives that are going to be a little bit longer life expectancy. The older you are, the more you're going to receive. So an 85-year-old will have 8.7%. That is guaranteed for the rest of their life, no matter how the charity pays for it. A charitable remainder trust, on the other hand, is revalued every year. So if you put $100,000, which is the minimum for us to be trustee, it goes up to 110,000. It pays out 5%. You get 5% of the 110,000. If it's down that 1 year, it's 90,000. You get 5% for 90,000. The reason it's for somebody a little bit younger, it's kind of a hedge against inflation because it should grow as time goes on, and you should get more money from a charitable remainder trust, a unit trust. Both of them give you a tax deduction. The charitable remainder trust or charitable remainder gift annuity has a little better tax benefits because some of it flows back to you tax free. So there's some differences, and we're always happy to do illustrations if people have questions about it.
And John, and then at the end of life, the residual amount in the funds, those go to the charity?
It goes to the charity and it goes to the purpose that you designate. So it can go to a specific unit, a specific cause as you decide.
All right. Well, thank you for that clarification.
Yes.
That's very, very helpful. John, in looking around at our current environment with the markets and everything going on, I understand interest rates have been rising for CDs, money markets, US treasuries. But some of the accounts, savings accounts or checking accounts, you still get a very low interest rate on them. Are there opportunities for somebody to increase their cash flow?
Yeah, that's a charitable gift annuity is really the way to do that.
Okay.
A year ago, I would say they probably were more attractive because interest rates on CDs were so low. The nice thing, as I said, with the charitable gift annuity, is that it is fixed. So if interest rates do start to go down and CD rates do go down, gift annuity rates, what you lock in it is what you lock in at. So that's not going to change, and that's for the life. So there's no flexibility. You have to worry every 6 months or a year what the difference is. So a charitable gift annuity is definitely a way for most ages to get a higher return than you would from some of the other vehicles.
John, we did have a question that came in, so let me kind of read through this.
Yes.
Can I support multiple colleges through my estate gift? My husband is interested in leaving a portion to WOSU, and I want to support the College of Vet Med in our estate.
Yes.
What is the best way to achieve this kind of dual purpose?
We would do a gift agreement that actually has both purposes in there and give you the language for your estate plan, just to put the language in simply in your estate plan. Your gift agreement will have exactly how you want it in those two areas, and you can change that over time as you want without having to actually change the language in your will or trust. So the gift agreement would be the way to go for that. And you can give to as many units on campus. It doesn't have to just be two. We have donors who do 5 or 6 different areas, but we can definitely accommodate that.
Okay. But again, it's reaching out to your office, having the discussion, and just as we're doing here tonight, you have a menu of options to help walk the individual through, the donor, to accomplish their goal.
Yes.
All right. I guess another question that comes up is, what about people who have stocks or even bonds that may have low dividends or interest yields? Is this a good option to consider as a gift, a charitable gift?
I think a charitable gift annuity is, and I think a charitable remainder trust can do the exact same thing. I mean, we're not selling these. We do not give commission. They're not an investment vehicle. This is a way to get income back and make a charitable gift. So there is a little bit difference than what a stock and or a bond would be. But you can increase what you're receiving income-wise using one of these vehicles. And there's added benefits because you also get a partial charitable deduction.
So you can use a stock or a bond to fund the charitable gift annuity?
Yes, you can. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. It doesn't have
as long as it's been over a year. You need to hold it for at least a year in order to get the full benefits.
All right, that's really good to know too. You mentioned charitable gift annuities. John, I'm wondering if you could help us understand the difference between a charitable gift annuity and a commercial annuity.
Yeah, commercial annuities sometimes have a bad reputation, and of course, there's a place for them in people's portfolio. A charitable gift annuity is very similar to a commercial annuity. You're putting money into it and you're getting an income back for the remainder of your life. The difference with a charitable gift annuity is that when you're no longer living, the charity receives the remainder and you can decide where it goes. With a commercial annuity, once you're no longer living, it goes back to the insurance company or the financial institution. So the big difference is one goes to charity and one goes back to the financial institution. And also with a charitable gift annuity, you get a charitable deduction when you fund it.
You also mentioned, John, and I know I've done a charitable gift annuity with Ohio State.
Yeah.
I found it very helpful that the illustrations you gave us allowed us to determine what amount we wanted to put into the gift annuity, the payout. There are so many options. Again, it's sort of a menu approach. But those illustrations, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I just found those extremely helpful and tailored to our individual needs.
Yeah, so it's really based on your age and what the maximum amount you can give. So it depends if it's 1 or 2 life, but we're happy to do an illustration at any point to see what it is. The nice thing about the charitable gift annuity is it's a very low threshold to do it at Ohio State. It's only $10,000. So we have people who start to do it at $10,000 and they do one a year. I think we have one that's been up to 20 gift annuities. They do one every year because they get more, their rate goes up every year because they're getting older.
Well, that's a clever way to ladder those. I never
That's
thought
right,
about that.
and ladder in your CD.
Right. John, another kind of sidebar question. Over the past year, we've heard there may be some concerns as far as the struggles from regional banks like the Silicon Valley Bank. Are charitable gift annuities secure, and are they protected with the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC?
So they are not protected by FDIC because it is not a savings or a checking account or other things that would be actually protected under that. Charitable gift annuities are guaranteed by the charity. So as long as the charity is around, they have to continue to payment. So even if the money goes to zero, so say Ohio State does a charitable gift annuity with somebody for $100,000, paying out 6%, we have to pay that $6,000 out, even if we don't invest it correctly and we have zero left. So Ohio State has to use their unrestricted funds. So for us, I think we're very secure because we're a very large institution and we're going to continue to make our payments as long as we're around. If there has been incidents in the past with smaller charities that go under, that you do no longer get your charitable your payment each quarter or each month. So it's important when you're doing this with a charity, you make sure they have the assets to back it up because it's only backed up by the charity.
Okay, great. That gives you some perspective. Especially with the current environment and all the things that are going on.
Yeah.
John, individuals that are planning to make charitable gifts now, or what's coming up very quickly here by the end of the year, what are the best assets and that they can consider giving? Are there assets you would recommend or look at?
Yeah. So what we see the most of is cash, and that's probably the asset I would say that isn't the best asset to give. One of the best assets to give is security. So stocks. If you've had stocks you've held for over a year and you have a gain, giving it to a charity gives you a benefit. So we do not pay capital gain. So you have the gain, you give it to the charity, you get the full fair market value or the average price for the day that it's transferred as your charitable deduction. When we get it, we sell it, there's no capital gain. You could repurchase your stock and have a higher cost basis with the cash you're going to give us. So stock is by far, I believe, the best tool we should be working with. I think donor advised funds are great. I think a lot of people will put money into donor advised funds close to the end of the year, not knowing exactly where they want to give their money to charity-wise. You put money into a donor advised fund, which is at a Fidelity or Schwab or Vanguard or the Columbus Foundation. And then you can get your charitable deduction this year and decide down the road where you want to give your money to. And then, of course, the IRA rollover. I think if you're 70 and a half, that's a great way to make a gift is from your IRA rollover.
Well, again, there's a lot of options out there. You
There's a
just
lot,
have
yeah.
to look what your goal is and how best to accomplish it.
Yeah.
John, we're coming up here at the end of the year pretty quickly. It seems like the year just flies by. Given that, are there important dates that we should keep in mind as far as making our donations?
Yeah.
It takes time for stocks. Cash is pretty easy, but what are the time frames you want to look at with the various donations?
If you're going to make a gift other than cash, I would look at the beginning of December at the latest in doing that. You can try to do it after that. Sometimes there's a glitch and there could be some issues. You have to have everything done by December 31st. At the latest for stocks, I would say the 15th of December, just to be sure. If you're transferring mutual funds, it may be a little bit ahead of that because mutual funds take a little longer. If you are writing a check to a charity, it needs to be postmarked by December 31st. So you have to make sure it's postmarked. If it's postmarked on January 2nd or 1st, you're not going to get the charitable deduction for this year. So the earlier you get it in, the better of having no glitches with your tax deductions.
John, I've also done cash or credit card, I should say, online. That
Yeah.
for me has been easy, and you could see it immediately posted.
Yeah, if you do the credit card and you go online to make the gift, you should get a receipt and it should be acknowledged the same day.
Okay, great. John, you mentioned giving stock or mutual funds. Can you walk us through the process on how you would do that?
Yeah, so what happens is you would go to your brokerage firm and we give you instructions to transfer to our brokerage firm, which is with Morgan Stanley. The funds are transferred to our account. Usually takes a day or two to hit our account. Once it hits our account, you get the average of the high and low for the day as your tax deduction. We send you a receipt telling you what that is. And then you use that along with the Form 8283 for your taxes during the year. So it's an easy way to do it. We have the form. It explains exactly how to make the transfer, and it's an easy process to do.
All right. And again, your office can walk us through this as we make that transfer.
Yeah, absolutely.
John, another question that comes up once in a while, are family foundations still popular and are they being utilized?
I think family foundations have its role, and I think they are popular with people who have a lot of wealth. What we're seeing more of, though, is donor advised funds. So donor advised funds are ones where, as I said earlier, you put the money in and you can pay out to charity at any point, but you get the tax deduction the year that you put it in. You're seeing a lot more people with wealth putting into donor advised funds because it's much easier than a family foundation. The family foundation has its own tax returns. It has to distribute so much money every year, has a lot of rules. Donor advised funds are much simpler and turnkey. So I think those are the popular ones that you're going to see more of.
Now, on the donor advised funds, there's no time limit on when it gets distributed, is what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah, currently.
Currently.
Congress is talking about making some changes to that. They've been talking about that for a while, but currently you do not have to distribute it all at once. And actually, Ohio State partnered with the Columbus Foundation, so we do have an Ohio State branded donor advice fund that is a partnership with the Columbus Foundation.
Okay, great. And again, I think if you have these kind of questions, that's where your office is an invaluable resource because you keep up with the current changes.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is a full-time job, John, in and of itself.
It keeps us busy.
I'm sure it does. John, what about real estate? If someone wanted to donate, let's say their family home or a vacation home, can you tell us a little bit about gifts of real estate, and are they a good idea and how are they handled?
Well, I think you're seeing with real estate that a lot of real estate has gone up in value throughout the country and here in Columbus also. So when you give if you have a residential home, you do have exemptions. So if you're single, you have a $250,000 exemption, and if you're married, it's $500,000. So if you don't have gain above the 250 or the half a million, you're not going to be taxed. But say you live in California, you have property in California, and it's went up $1 million since you bought it 30 years ago. You're going to pay some taxes on that. So that could be a good opportunity to do some planning. Also, vacation homes, vacant land, uh, apartment complexes, all things that you, if you sold, would have a capital gain, is a great way to look at for charitable giving. You can do it outright, directly to the charity. They sell it, and then they use the money the way you tell them. That's a long process. For us, it's about a 6-month process to get all that done, but that's something that can be done. You can also do it, put it into a charitable remainder trust. You put it in the charitable remainder trust, there's no taxes due because that's a tax exempt entity when it's sold, and then you get income from it from the rest of your life. So that's a great way if you want income back and not pay capital gain, or you can leave property in your estate plan. If you're going to do that, though, we ask that you have your successor trustee or your executor sell it. It just makes the process a lot easier than just gifting it directly to Ohio State, where we have to go through a process before we can accept it. So there are different ways to do it if you have real property.
All right. Again, a number of options that are available.
Yeah.
John, another question that I've heard and does come up is someone may want to help their grandchildren with their education, but they're worried they won't be there when the time comes and the grandchildren are in college. Is there a best way to do this?
Yeah, and it's not normally through a charity or through a university. It's through a 529 plan. So all states have their own 529 plans. There's national plans where you can put money into it. It grows tax free, and if it's used for education, it's tax free as it comes out. So that's probably your best vehicle to get money for education to grandkids or even to children. There are some other creative ways with charitable remainder annuity trust for a term of years, but the easiest is definitely the 529 plan.
Okay. But again, if you have a question and you want to look at a tool as a charitable remainder trust that has a payout, that can be a discussion along with illustrations that you're
Yes.
able to do.
Yes.
Another kind of question that is out there is we've heard a lot about cryptocurrency. And in recent years, does Ohio State accept crypto as a gift?
We do. So we just started to accept cryptocurrency about a year and a half ago. We partner with a firm called the Giving Block, which accepts it. What's very important with crypto, it is so volatile. I think it was what I saw this morning. It was if you had a Bitcoin, it was 35,000 a coin. It changes so quickly that if it took us 6 hours to sell, it could be a huge difference in the gift. So we partnered with the Giving Block, and it is sold instantaneously. So you tell us, we explain how to get this done. You go on, you put it into into their database. They sell it right away, and you know exactly what the gift is immediately. So that's the process to do it. It's simple. We don't see a lot of it, but it is something we probably are going to see down the road.
Now, John, when you mentioned it immediately turns into cash because
Yes.
you cash it in. Is it more like giving cash then, or a appreciated security?
So the IRS says it's more like appreciated security. So, and it's even a little different than that, because you then have to get an appraisal if it's over $5,000, which you do not need to do with the security. That's more for tangible personal property. They consider this tangible personal property, so you have to actually get an appraisal. So we have helped people get appraisals for this. It doesn't really make a lot of sense because we know exactly what it's sold for, but they're requiring for appraisal over $5,000. So it's a little different than appreciated securities, but if you sell it, it's not like cash where you can just hand us a check. There could be some gain if you sell it on your own.
Okay. So again, it's have the discussion up front.
Up front, absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Also, if you wanted to make a gift of life insurance, can you tell us how would that work?
Yeah, so we're seeing some of this. There's a place for life insurance. We just started to take life insurance again. If you do a gift of life insurance, there's two ways you can do it. You can get a brand new policy, make Ohio State Foundation the owner and the beneficiary. We're kind of in charge of it, but you're paying the premiums. So when you're paying the premiums, you're getting a charitable deduction. You're just leveraging that larger gift. Your gift credit is going to be what the death value is. If we have to surrender it, your gift credit actually goes down. Then with some people have life insurance policies that they had for years. They know they don't need them anymore. You can gift it to the charity. We will surrender it, and then you will get a charitable deduction based on what the appraised value is of the life insurance policy. A little bit of a process with that too, but we're happy to walk through that also.
Great. I think that kind of are all the questions I've had in reading the information. I was wondering, Corinza, you've been helping us to kind of look at incoming questions. Corinza, do you have any additional questions that have come in from our audience today?
I'm going to give it a moment for any more to come through.
Could take a minute for somebody to type. I think why we're doing that, I think, maybe it's helpful. We have a web page that I think is very helpful for people. So if you go just to osu.edu and you just type in the search bar, estate and gift planning, you'll get a web page, and it has a lot of different articles on there. It has a lot of brochures that you can just ask for, and it'll send you a brochure right away. Some interactive tools. So I think there's a lot of good information on there that is helpful for people when they're thinking through this process. And also the fact that anytime you have a question, you're feel free to contact us. That's what we're here for, and we're happy to help you through any question that you have.
All right, we've got one question that says, could you fund a new scholarship with a gift annuity?
You can. So I think with a charitable gift annuity, you decide what the beneficiary is and who the beneficiary is on campus and how we are to spend the money. So if you have a specific college in mind, for example, with Marianne, it was pharmacy. She was able to put the College of Pharmacy for the beneficiary of the gift annuity for the specific purpose that she wanted within the College of Pharmacy. So yeah, you can be as specific as you want with any of our vehicles. It does not have to be unrestricted. Some universities do require that to be unrestricted. We do not.
All right, we've got two more. One says, if I take my IRA required distribution and they send me the check, can I just send it to OSU to count towards my qualified charitable distribution?
So, interesting question. When you do a IRA distribution, so the qualified charitable distribution, the QCD, it has to go directly from your administrator to the charity. If it goes to you as the owner of the IRA, you're going to be taxed on that. And then when you're going to be making a gift to the charity, that you have to itemize in order to do that. So very important to make sure the administrator sends it directly to the charity. We have letters. So if you are thinking about doing this, we have kind of a form to explain how it works, but a letter to go to your IRA administrator explaining where to send it to, and a letter back from you sending it to us to say how it's to be used. So we do have that. And on our webpage, we actually have kind of a widget, let you put your administrator in there, and it pulls everything up so you can send it directly to them from that widget.
And we have, do pledge payments need to be equal over the 5 years?
Pledge payments do not need to be equal. We have some people, let's say they want to do $100,000 and they know they're going to have some type of event that's going to give them more money 3, 4, or 5 years from now. You can make a gift and say that everything's to be paid within 5 years. There does not have to be a schedule. Most people do divide them up. If it's a 5-year pledge, 20% each year. but there's no requirement. You can do it over 3 years. As long as you're paid over that 5 years, not a problem.
And I have a question that came in for Marianne. Can you tell us about your process? Was it as easy as it sounds?
Well, first of all, we're very fortunate to have John at the university. His expertise and knowledge are indispensable. And yes, it was easy because John was there to answer questions. And I found whether we did the charitable gift annuity, the illustrations were so helpful to us because we could change them, add to it, find out what the payout was, decide if we were going to take it out in my husband's name or my name. There, again, it's such a large menu, and those illustrations can help you make a decision. The same goes for setting up scholarships. John, again, was able to walk us through how we could pay this off. As John said, you can put payments in the commitment agreement, or you can just have a large amount due at the end. But the gift planning and estate planning, I found John to be an invaluable resource. So take advantage of him. What you see here is what you get. He keeps current, and he knows so much about what is going on and what has gone on and what has changed. It's extremely helpful.
Thank you. As of right now, those are all of the questions that I've seen come through.
Well, John, as always, you've been extremely helpful, and I always learn something when we talk. So I really have to thank you for taking the time this evening to walk us through these questions. And I would encourage anybody, again, to check out the website for estate planning. A lot of information is there. And again, one-on-one conversations, I would encourage that because everybody's circumstance is different. So, John, thank you for your time this evening.
Well, thank you for taking your time, and Carla for taking your time. I know she was teaching a class right before she came on for the introductions, and we appreciate her taking her time. You know, we're here to help. That's what we're here for, and we have a great team. And anything you need, we're happy to answer any question you have. Everybody have a good evening.